Hola, hello, welcome back to another story highlighting a Latina working hard to build something amazing. Today's guest is my friend Mariana. I met her through the wedding industry and immediately loved her drive and ambition. She has two businesses. One is Exquisitely Striking, a production company based in Chicago. And within a short time, she took that business from being a small company lending a helping hand to a big production company that works directly with vendors, venues, and other clients in the events industry. She also developed the idea of creative pop-up ceremonies that make eloping memorable. Her company Elope Up specializes in intimate ceremonies with an all-inclusive package. And I have had the pleasure of taking photos at one of these pop-up ceremonies last year, and it was amazing. So much fun. She takes us through breaking through norms to build businesses that support her team as well as her community, all with the drive, passion, and dedication her parents instilled in her. I hope you enjoy my chat with Mariana. I am so excited to talk to you today, my friend of like 5 years. We've known each other through the wedding industry, and we have kept in touch for a long time. I feel like I've always known you.
Random things.
I know, but I'm so excited to introduce my friend Mariana to the listeners and share her story. She has built businesses in the Chicago area, and I'm always so proud of what you are putting out there, and I'm just like a huge cheerleader to what you're doing. And I just wanted everyone else to hear your story as well. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your story, your background.
Sure. So Mariana, born and raised in Chicago. I'm from Pilsen. And I'll make it a point to say if you're from Chicago, you're from a neighborhood, so don't say a suburb. So I started two businesses. I have Exquisitely Striking that I started in 2014, and then Elope Up 2019 before this pandemic. But it was something that's been in the works and it's slowly evolving. Um, but yeah, I grew up here in Chicago, Mexican household, so very traditional way upbringing. Um, Predominantly Spanish, and then it's one of those things. You start school, it's only English, and then I thank my dad every day that he's like, "Don't talk to me unless it's in Spanish because you're gonna forget." So grateful now for that. But yeah, I am very proud to have two businesses, woman owned and Latina, and I'm just doing my thing, enjoying it.
My father would say the same thing, like, don't talk unless you're going to speak in Spanish. I also was Spanish
Yeah.
speaking, or Spanish was my first language, but you go to school, you assimilate, and then you speak mostly English.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like our stories are so similar. And the fact that we met in
Mm-hmm.
like the wedding business circle, I feel like there's not a lot of Latinas or Latinx vendors in the wedding industry. And so whenever I find someone that I can relate to, I'm just like, oh my goodness, can we be friends? And can we like go out? Can we like do this? Can we swap stories? Can we like just hang out? Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get it.
Yes.
We're making a change.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah. So why don't you tell me about your first business?
So yeah, I started off freelancing for a couple of florists in the industry, still trying to find like my footing, not sure what I was going to do. I'm like, I just have an art background. What am I going to do? Um, but through this industry, one thing I learned, people were always short an extra hand for these installs, these breakdowns, for these big events. And that's one thing I was really good at. Like I had a lot of friends and family always willing to help. And they were so excited about being a part of it too. So curious to seeing how everything, comes up. So I started with just like mostly doing dismantles for these big events. And it wasn't common because one, for a woman to do that, it's like, this is tough job for a woman to be leading something like this, because you normally see these big guys coming in here to break down. And then you see me coming and with my team to break down these events. So we started that way. And one thing I learned, it took a while to get clients to like fully trust. And I totally get it. People are very protective of their business, which is understandable. But I feel from working with me, seeing the work I was producing, the people I was bringing in to work with, that's where the trust evolved. And next, there was more tasks, more responsibilities, more reaching out for, hey, I have this event. You'll be assisting, you'll be here with such and such, to, hey, I have an event. Can you handle it? Can you and your people do this? So my business definitely is focused with vendors. So florists, planners, venues, you name it. If you need assistance, whether it's just an extra hand or you have a big event or multiple events in one day, there's literally no way to be two places at once. Well, we're how you can. So the way that works, that took time too, because I feel like every vendor designer has their process, their methods, and how they work. And one thing I learned, we have to become adaptable to that in order to fully produce what they're doing. So I normally, how I approach something like that, it's like a new client, I'm always there. I read them, I see their process, I learn from them, and then I go ahead and pass that on to my people. This is what we're doing. This is how we do it here. So that's how that started. So then every year since I've been in business, it's been busier and busier. I want to say last year when I started Elope Up, before we get into that, I started the year thinking this is the year for Elope Up because it's something I've been planning, but for sure it's going to happen. Thinking I finally found understanding how the clients work, the events are working. I had a strong team of 20 people and I'm like, we could do this, right? And then I'll have people I trust and are responsible, know how we handle this thing. So I could also start up Elope Up. So I started with that mindset, not anticipating the crazy year we had. It was a really good year for Exquisitely. We had the first crazy weekend, we had 17 events. It's unheard of. And we're talking about 17 events with several vendors. They're like, okay, we need people for this wedding. We have breakdowns here. We were all over the city. We were in the suburbs. I was freaking out internally because I kept my cool, right? I'm like, yeah, we could do this. It's freaking out. But yeah, it took a lot of organizing, going back and forth with emails, keep staying on top of every update and change, because that happens with events. There's constantly last minute changes. It turns out we need one more person, or they set back the time from here to here. So now we have this amount of time to do the job, or that sort of thing. So that happened, but we got through that weekend. I was like, we could really do this. This is like, wow, this is crazy. After that, every other weekend where it was just 4 or 5 events, I'm like, easy, fine. After getting through that one weekend. So it was a very good, successful year for Exquisitely. I had a lot of anticipation before this pandemic for 2020 because everyone was getting married in 2020. But yeah, so because of all that awesomeness that was going on, I kind of had to put a pause with Elope Up. Initially, the idea with Elope Up, with everything going on with like these pop-ups, this experiential movement, these speakeasies, all this kind of fun, exciting way of, going to events and experiencing things. My thing was like, okay, how do we bring this for weddings, and how do we keep it in a way where I still have some sort of control where it doesn't get overwhelming? So my thing is, the thing about Exquisite I learned, I love the fact that every vendor is different. So I learned so much from every vendor, their approach, their technique, and that means every job is different. Even though you think, oh, it's a wedding every weekend. No, every client is different. So their process, their style designing is different. So it's always interesting. It's always engaging. It's always fun. It's work. Trust me. People come in, you're playing with flowers. No, we're not. It's so exhausting. But when you finish it and you see like your client's face, they're happy, they're proud, they're like, it makes you feel good. So we do it for that last like feeling, that look, that good job. It's beautiful. We're happy. Yes. Okay. Success, right? So I learned that what I enjoyed about it, that every event was different and everything was unique in its own way. So I wanted to bring what I liked about that industry and what I wanted to do with what's going on in the world, and still keeping it small, because that's the only way you get to kind of have more handle of things. So I thought, hey, let's do these fun, intimate pop-ups in unique places, and we create themes, and it's still elegant and fun and exciting, but it's not just for the couple. Like the guests also enjoy it, and it's something more intimate, private, and fun, So that was the focus. There is other things that were, I guess, in going into play, because I had other plans for Elope Up, but this is how we started. So that was the plan. I successfully did one 2019. They were coming in from Florida. They flew in, and we had a fun pop-up at Maria's Bar in Bridgeport. It was just so cool how willing these vendors, when I was reaching out to these smaller businesses, this is what I'm trying to do. They're like, yeah, cool, come here and do it, right? So the idea is to, aside from doing these fun, intimate pop-ups, was creating another way for these neighborhoods to create income. So essentially, whether you own a small venue or a small business, or if you just own property and you have this really cool garden, patio, balcony with an awesome skyline view, or a cool rooftop, you name it, we come in, you allow us to pop up, we'll be there for a few hours, just do our thing, and we pay you. So it was another way of making money, only no one has to stay there the whole night, So it was another way of creating income for the neighborhood, experiencing something different, and giving us like a new kind of space to create something fun and awesome, right? So you could definitely say, oh, my wedding was here. Like, what? You had a wedding here? Like, there's no way. So that was the fun part of it. Now, the plan was to always make Elope Up, create Elope Up kind of a place, almost like a platform for artists to come and produce their work for smaller, intimate kind of events. So something I learned, not just from being in art school and just being in this industry, working with all types of designers, when you explain something, how someone understands it is totally different. And sometimes people can't see your vision, understand it, and they're just kind of like, oh yeah, that might work or not, So I knew I kind of had to break it down and create more of like visuals and experience. So I started Elope Up with your typical kind of expected, like what's expected from a ceremony. So yes, our packages are all inclusive. We're professional photographer, pastry chef for cake, floral decor designing, officiants, all those things. Plus we could outsource vendors for catering and drinking bars, that sort of thing. That's something separate. But yeah, all inclusive with our packages. So I created what was expected with bouquet, floral, and all that. But it was like baby steps to where it is now. So how I started the year was slowly hinting at little things that were a little more different, right? And my last style shoot that I did was I'm hoping this is like the next little step into really having people understand the possibilities, right? This is just something small. So essentially I worked with a dance company, local actually in Pilsen. And they were amazing. I told them what I was trying to do. They were super excited and willing. So they choreographed a dance for this ceremony. So instead of your typical, you sit down, ceremony happens, you have an actual beautiful performance of ballerinas. And so the ceremony happens, it ends, and then they complete the dance kind of thing. So it's almost like they're dancing around the couple after they're officially, husband and wife. Um, Also hiring musicians to play along for this dance. So I want people to see and understand that you could create a new norm, if you will, by allowing this to happen with working with artists and creating something special with not just because it's your special day, but you could always do something special for your guests, experience something unique like this. So whether you're a dancer, a musician, a painter, a sculptor, if you do have really cool installations with light fixtures, you name it, give me that challenge. I want to work with those people because we could essentially create something unique for the next couple that wants to get married with Elope Up. So that's where I'm heading with Elope Up. I definitely want to create somewhere artists not only could rely on okay, someone's hiring me to produce this one piece for their home, or I have a gallery opening and only for this. No, now you're getting hired for this experience, for whether it's a wedding or a private event. You're getting hired to produce something amazing for these, for these people that are just wanting to work with Elope Up. So I'm really excited about that. So it took a while, and this pandemic has not helped, but luckily we got a few pop-ups throughout the year, even through this pandemic, that it doesn't cease to amaze me when there's still people that are successful where they're at and still willing to help, they haven't lost it. They're like, oh, I'm not getting paid, or it's not where I want to be, or I don't see it, turn you away. No, they're like, oh, that's really cool. I really like it. I want to be a part of it. And it just awesome. I'm going to take that with me, because once I see Elope Up's getting to a certain point, that it's just okay, now it's consistently producing work for all these artists, I will not forget that kind of humbling experience from other people. They're like, oh, it's new, so I don't want to deal with you, because a lot of people definitely want credentials. And although I have in the beginning slipped in, I'm like, I've had this other company for so long and I know these people, and name dropping. So I'm not going to lie, that's helped. But I get it when something is new, and whether it's risky or they just don't want to deal with it. I won't forget that, how great people have been.
So, I already said that we've known each other for a long time. And I feel like whenever we've talked, you have these amazing, grand ideas that I would have never even dreamed up of. And especially this idea with Elope Up. I feel like it's something that has been needed or wanted. Being in the wedding industry for over 10 years, we see a lot. Weddings are what they are. It's wedding, it's the getting ready, it's the ceremony, it's the reception, it's the portraits. But I do notice that people want something different. And that something different, whether it's it used to be having a photo booth was oh, this is going to be that fun experience people have. And it's moved to having a whole dessert table. Oh, people are really going to talk about that. Or having a late night snack come in from a specific restaurant. They want that wow factor that's going to set them apart from every other wedding that they've been to or their guests have been to. And you have really created a complete I don't know, genre of wedding experiences, from start to finish. That experience that you want to create is unique to each couple. And it's beautiful because there's a lot of artists that want to include their passion or their culture to their wedding day. And it's so easy to get swept up in the traditional wedding thing. Oh, well, that's not usually done. Or oh, well, you'd have to pay a whole lot extra to have someone come in and do a whole whatever. But you are actually showing that it can be done, and that it can be done like so well.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. We'll share the social media later, but if you haven't like checked it out, like it's so good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's really important. Every couple's unique, and I have met people that are like, "Oh, we're engaged. We've never been to a wedding, so what do we need?" So they tend to go with whatever is the norm, whatever has been offered. So essentially, if you start letting them know, we could really customize this wedding so it's really you. So there's a lot of people, aside from artists, like having somewhere to kind of create something special for a couple or an event. We have couples that are like art enthusiasts that would appreciate something like this, that let's say they love music, they're fascinated by a certain type of instrument or a dance, contemporary, whatever, they, knowing that it's a possibility to have this for their day, like that's amazing. You have your own performance and your own like mini concert, and that's another one that we were, well, it's going to happen this year, but pandemic, but we were thinking of like working with a music festival and literally having a pop-up right before a band performs. So that was all good to go and super excited, because then we have like all these people being a part of it, giant balloons, like it'd be really exciting. I mean, for the ideal couple. But then pandemic happened, and so we're limited to what we could do right now for sure. But even still, like there's still possibilities. And the thing with Elope Up, like in which a lot of other people are doing as well, we could make you feel comfortable by bringing this experience to your home, whether it's an outdoor yard, that sort of thing. If you don't want to necessarily be, okay, although we do offer like venue options or like unique kind of pop-ups within Chicago neighborhoods. If you're like, no, I want it in my yard, then that's fine too. Of course, whatever you're comfortable with. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's took a bit. It's still going to take a bit for people to see the possibilities, but I feel like I'm very confident. I feel like it's very promising because I could feel like it could really be something for those unique couples out there that don't necessarily want what right now is traditional. We're, like I said, we're creating a new norm, a new tradition where this is another way to get married. This is something else you can include, And then there's people that just feel good aside from being able to experience something unique and different for their special day. You're also giving back, you're hiring an artist, to do and produce something beautiful. And I think that's amazing too. I mean, that's what we do. And people might maybe not see it this way. When you're hiring a florist, you're hiring a designer that's passionate about what they're doing. So if you look at it that way, maybe you'll consider thinking like, I'm not going to pay for that. I'm like, well, you should. You're paying for a designer's work. It's not necessarily the cost of the product. Sometimes it's like, hey, it's work to design. It takes a skill like everything else. So this is just something else for other types of artists.
Yeah, and I love how
for
you
sure.
Are purposeful about including people from the community. Like especially during this time where the economy has kind of just like stopped, especially for smaller villages in the Chicago area that are primarily Latinx or people of color. Like having that like extra boost of money or like income has been huge, whether it comes from a non-traditional event like a pop-up, or like everyone has had to shift, whether it's like restaurants having to offer carry out, or artists having to like rethink their what they would usually do, like pop-ups, or like you said, concerts, like having a vendor at a booth. Like the whole world has had to shift, but especially like these smaller communities that really thrive on outdoor events, and larger group gatherings. It's really inspiring for you to try and partner with them and at least like, hey, I'm going to do this and I want to bring you along with me. But I feel like that's how the the Latino
Yeah.
culture is. Like we're always trying to like help our family, help our
Yeah.
friends. Like we're always just so willing to bring other people along.
It's one of those things too that like I've come across and met people, um, particularly artists, since we're talking about it, that I'm just like, wow, you did that? You must be really successful and like making it and all this. And somehow they're like not. And it's not for the lack of hustle. It's just maybe they haven't hit that right exposure of like clientele to know they exist. This is what they're doing. So it's like, it's wondering to me, I'm like, how can I help? Like, how can we do something about this? You know, because there's definitely a lot of talent out there, definitely. And we only come across some of it here and there on like social media. And I mean, thanks to social media for sure, we've come across a lot, but we want to do something else, you know, create something else for these artists to essentially make a living. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I want to go back and talk about the beginning part. So you said 2015 is when you started Exquisitely Striking.
14. Yeah.
How was that first event? Like that journey through like that first event that you booked, like the idea, the starting of it. How did you find people to help you with the events to like growing to that 17 a day period?
Yeah. So it took a bit. Like in the beginning, it felt people were so curious. The curiosity is what got people like, yeah, I want to see it. I want to experience that. I want to see an event, or hey, maybe when I get married, I want to see what's the potential, right? So I was very much a social butterfly back then before I had to work like this. So I had a lot of friends and family and very supportive. So as soon as they knew, I'm like, oh, Mariana needs help with something, like, oh, okay, let's try it or whatever. So it literally started with friends and family. From there, when I started hiring, because it's very important. The thing about this business, because it does involve people, different types of personalities, that's a trick. So sometimes they might have the work ethic, but they just won't click with a client, you know? So I feel like that personality is a big part of it too, because people are just, like I mentioned, not trusting. So I feel like I'm grateful enough to say that when I started hiring, I followed my gut feeling when I saw their work ethic. I saw it. If I liked it, if it was consistent, or it could match mine, I'm like, okay, I'm keeping you. And after that, we become friends. You stay on even longer, we're family. And I'm like, we keep that tight bond. And I think that's important. One thing I've learned from freelance, and even when I did retail, whatever, when I was younger, like you come across different forms of management. And definitely there's some that they probably didn't even learn how to manage, how to lead, how to be a boss. So they're taking their own like personal habits into the workplace. And sometimes you're like, man, you shouldn't do that or talk to someone like that or whatever, right? So what I've learned, definitely remember they're people, they have integrity, treat them with respect, treat them like they're competent, you know, like they can do more than what is expected. So that was the thing. So make sure there's that foundation of respect amongst the two. So I am very big with my people. Like I never say, I won't say like they work for me. Like I make sure to people I'm boss. To me, it's been very much like this is my team, right? We work together because we do. I'm not going to work less than they are. If anything, I always have to work even harder, you know, because I feel like if I expect that of them, I have to do it myself. You're not going to see me just pointing fingers and then sitting around and doing nothing. No. Um, everything I've learned through this industry, I definitely pass it on and encourage everyone to learn as much, because I'm not that person that's just, oh, I know more and I can always do it better. No, eventually, if people are willing and interested enough, they might surpass me and become even better at doing something. And I'm just like, whoa, okay, cool. You've mastered this better than me. Cool. I love it. It's awesome, because essentially we're a team and you're representing the company, so we all look good. So I'm very much that person. So I feel like it took me finding and meeting the right people with the right work ethic, trusting, to get where I am, to be able to go through 17 events knowing that everyone knows what they're doing, everyone's responsible, and it always helps that they all get along. So it's important too, like when you're in a work environment, that you like who you're working with, that you like who you're engaging with, because you know you need to get the job done, but it's still pleasant, you know? So I think it took, I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of great people along the way. Um, that we've bonded, we've connected, we've supported each other in different ways, and that ultimately has led my business to grow the way it has.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that people don't always talk about when they're talking about like building a business, that like you see someone who's successful and you must think like, oh, well, they can like delegate and they can like really lead and they must just be sitting at home like counting their money. But I feel like all of the business owners that I know, like you said, work and they hustle just as much, if not more, than the whole team. And I think that's one thing to like encourage other people who might be wanting to build a team or get into business, that being a leader is not just bossing people around. It's creating that environment that you said is safe, is trusting, is hardworking because they want to be, not because like they feel afraid. And I feel like that's why I am like, whenever I think of you, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this girl, like I cannot compete, I cannot compare, because you have just like created that environment. And I'm just so proud to be your friend and to know you, not just because you built a successful business, but because of the way that you build it and the way that you treat people is just like with so much heart and kindness and respect. And that like goes a long way when building a business.
Right. I think another thing I've learned, so even when I've hired new people, I'm always there to get to know new people, see how they work, how they are, interacting with them, what they're into, that sort of thing. Because I'm open book. I'm very open about everything, no filter. I say it how it is, kind of deal. And very realistic. I tell them like, okay, is working, you're great. And I understand this might only be a step into whatever path you're heading, you know. I'm like, if you stay with me forever, I love it. Great, fantastic, you know, but I'm realistic that you might not want to be in this industry forever. This might be temporary. And I am very open, and I just say, I'm like, as long as we have an understanding, I'm like, I'm also creating something right now and I'm sticking here. So it's important that we're consistent with the work ethic, that you respect me as I respect you, that if one day you need to leave or you're going on to got a job, or you had some certain goal, or you decide you finally are making it, it's time to part ways, I'll always respect that and encourage that. I'm never going to keep anyone from whatever they need to do. But always be open, you know, and I think when you establish that understanding right off in the beginning, I think they're like, okay, she gets me. This is just a job right now. This is temporary. And it kind of relieves that pressure on like keeping something like, oh, I'm going to leave her, feel guilty. I'm like, no, I get it. It's life. It's realistic. And people become more comfortable. I think it's very important to just say it how it is, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
For real.
Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what it means to you to have built this team and to have like so many people that you can say like they're not only working from you, but you're also cheering them on. I feel like as like maybe I want you to answer that with the perspective of like your cultural background. Like, what does that mean? Like when you tell your family, like, this is my business, what does it mean to you to be able to speak to what you built?
So a couple things about that. I think in my family, I'm the first entrepreneur. We're definitely tight, definitely a family oriented type of person, but I am the middle child. So there's that part too. They respect, what I've done. My parents are always very encouraging, so proud of you. And I'm always still like, even now, 35, I'm like a little kid. I'll like take a picture and send it to my dad and send it to my mom, like, look what I did, they'll never leave. And that's because I'm still their little girl, even though I'm 35. But in the beginning, it was very much like, because I guess when people hear of companies and businesses, you only think of where they're at, how successful they are, how they're producing. You don't think of how they started, where they started, and how hard it was, or what were the setbacks. You don't think of any of that. You're just thinking, that's an established company. Let me go work for that company, right? So I think keeping that in mind, I didn't blame my parents to like always concerned. They're like, why don't you just look for a full-time job? I'm like, this is my full-time job. I have plans and I'm heading somewhere. And for them, it's because their norm and what they were used to is like a steady paycheck, your insurance, everything's covered and it's easier. Yeah, but there's definitely a lot of pros and cons. And that would be like a whole other topic to like being entrepreneur, self-employed. But it does come with its like sacrifices, but it's an empowering thing, even though it took me a while to think like this, because you meet some of my friends and they could tell you that they'll be like, man, that's so cool. You're doing this. You have a company. And I was just like, yeah, like, I guess. Like, it took me a long time to see what I'm doing. Like, it took me now, like, okay, I am doing something cool. But I think it took the fact that I'm making an impact in a positive way for others and helping others to really like, wow, I'm proud. I'm helping someone else. It's not just me, So I think it took that acknowledgement to understand that, wow, I'm a little badass, like doing something. And so the aspect of like my parents understanding, always supportive no matter what, but there was always that fear. They're like, hey, but why don't you just get a job and don't worry. So I did have to withhold a lot of like setbacks, things that went wrong, because I don't want them to worry, So it was just something that I developed a stronger backbone. My work ethic was always there. That wholesome personality, my generosity, definitely those three things are something my parents instilled in me. Like, try to do the right thing, always try to hear people, even when you don't agree, that sort of thing, and just work really hard and consistently. So those three things is something that is just like embedded in me, it's with me, and this is who I am. And so that might be a cultural thing that just, I don't know, you hear that to be, I mean, it's a great cliche. The Mexicans are hardworking, but whatever. It's a great cliche. I won't be insulted by that. But it's something embedded in me, that just who I am and how I work. So there's certain things that I was like, when I started, I was super nervous. Like, I don't know if they were going to take me seriously, because I was like, to them, I'm like, you're running this thing and you saw this girl like popping out in a truck in a little dress, and like, how old are you? Like, it's just very questionable on what they expected from what I was bringing or whatever. So it took a while, because there's definitely a lot of like stereotypes that, went into play, but everything was overcome by the work, essentially. I definitely have a bubbly, sweet personality. So sometimes people might see that as like too friendly weakness, but I'm like, but I have work and skill to back up anything. So I'm pleasant. That's not a weakness. It's just who I am. So I'm proud now where I'm at.
Yeah, I feel like when I first started, I was in my 20s. And now in my 30s, I'm like, you know what? I got this. I'm a little bit more sure about what I'm doing and how I like present myself. So I totally get that. And even though my father comes he's an entrepreneur, so I had that in my DNA, my genetics, my influence. He was still like are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? Like, why don't you get a job? Or like, why don't you go to school to get your master's or degree in business? So yeah, I totally get it. I might because we're women and our parents like wanted, like you said, take care of us.
Yeah, they're always going to want
Yeah.
to just take care of us and make things easier. That's mom and dad. But I've talked about your dad more than one time because I love the idea that he was an entrepreneur, and what he did, he would essentially start up these businesses and then sell them. And I'm like, that's really cool. That is neat. You don't hear of that all the time. So I have brought him up a couple of times, and people are like, cool. I'm like, I know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's
I
like,
mean, because he
it's
believed
different.
in helping other people and giving them a chance at success as well. Um,
Yeah.
I do want to ask if you've ever uh, like encountered any uh, I don't know, discrimination, prejudice because you are a woman um, in this industry or because of your background, your Latinidad. Um, Walk through some of the experiences that you've encountered and how you handle them.
I feel like that's always going to be there for now. Um, but I've definitely experienced where they didn't want to hire me, I want to say, because they didn't trust me because I was a woman. And I say this specifically because I've met with clients where they were going through horrible experiences with another company that were like just so many things going wrong, right? And then I'm like, here I come. You think I'm your solution because, one, I have credibility. I will work hard, and as long as you're open, you have that line of communication with me, and I'm aware what's going on. Hey, we're gonna be fine, right? But still refused to hire me, or did not hire me, or reach out to me, and went back to the same company doing those bad things, And I'm just like,
Oh
okay.
my goodness.
So my thing with that, you're gonna come across people like that with that closed-minded, old school mindset. So I'm just like, that's okay. That means they're just like anything else, not my clientele. Same thing when someone doesn't want to pay a certain amount for anything, whatever you're selling or doing, that's not your clientele. So whether it's because of cost, stereotypes, prejudice, whatever it is, it's not your clientele. So I look at it, it's like, okay, not my problem, not dealing with it. I still have great clients. I'm still projecting what I want to attract from my company. So I think what I learned, especially with this pause, I feel like a lot of people kind of reflected a lot during this pandemic to kind of really think, because like compared to last year in our industry, it's like go, 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 go. Next, summer's gone, fall's here,
Yep.
Christmas, oh, next year. That's how it's been. And I feel like because of the pause, you're listening, you're observing, you're understanding, you're reflecting. And from that, I'm just like, I've been successful in listening to my gut this long. From now on, I refuse to go into something I feel like untrusting, or it's not fitting, or it's not the right fit of a client or whatever. And I'm just like, they're not for me. And sometimes you have to say no. And I think that's something I learned before. It's like, yes, 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 everybody. Now it's like, no, I'm at a point that what I've established and me loving what I do is more important than just seeing all that money coming in from yes, 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 from people that are just taking away that joy on you enjoying what you're doing. And that's very important. So I decided moving forward, I'm like, I work with people that still appreciate what we're doing, need what we're producing, essentially the work, the workers, whatever, that really genuinely need our help. And I keep me like happy, essentially, because it's in me. I like helping. And that's just something I've always been. That generosity in me is just, I like helping other people. And essentially my business was established in helping other vendors. So I'm going to stick to my gut and just protect that joy of enjoying helping others.
Yeah, I feel like it's so important to have that internal peace with what you're doing, um, as opposed to letting someone else's opinion or feelings like hold you back. Well, what I'm doing is I really want to help elevate other women who are doing amazing things, and just give the next generation or other women that um, a community to feel like, okay, there's someone else that I can relate to. So I have some questions that I ask everyone and wanted to just walk through. And maybe you already answered some of these, but I wanted to give you a chance to answer and maybe bring some encouragement to other people. What are past
Okay.
ideas or patterns or limiting beliefs that you had to work through? And I know you kind of answered that a little bit, but didn't know if you wanted to include something else.
Yes. So I've had this conversation actually with a cousin and his wife a while back, and it's just something I've learned over the years. It's like as a kid, you're raised and your parents protect you in this bubble, like be whatever you want to be when you grow up, right? And at some point, you're growing up, you have setbacks, life hits you hard, things don't go as planned. So many things happen, right? And then you start, not everybody, but you sometimes along the way you start losing faith. You start losing that little kid inside you that I can be whatever I want to be, right? And sometimes you become a little cynical, and become a pessimist maybe, and that little voice is kind of just saying, no, you can't do it, right? So I feel like it's very important to protect that inner child in you that believes, that's very optimistic, that the sky's the limit kind of deal, that dream as big as you want, right? I think it's very important because what I've learned, it doesn't matter if you're not good at something. What matters is if you want to do it. So, like, if there's something, a dream or a goal or something you want to accomplish, and you're like, I am not the one, or you think you are not the one that could potentially do this, all it takes is like that patience, dedication, and the will to want to do it. That's all it is. So, even if you don't necessarily become the best to your standards of whatever it is you want to do, you will become it. You will do it as long as, again, you have the patience, the dedication, the will to learn it or do it. So I am very much the type of person, because I've met people, they're like, I am the best at this and I'm the only one that could do it. And that's totally fine. I'm like, cool. You have that confidence. Good for you. That's what makes you successful. I don't believe it. I don't necessarily agree with it because I feel like I have met people that just didn't know anything about certain, whether it's designing or whatever, never touched a flower. And they're like, I really enjoy this. I'm like, cool, go with that. So you like it. So then do it. So what's keeping you, because I have met successful people that just weren't necessarily, and not to say the best, but they're like up there. Like you come across people that are producing work like crazy, whatever it is they're doing, you're like, I've had better, but they're hustling because that's what they really wanted to do. That's what they enjoy doing. I think that's what's important. Do what you want to do, protect that inner child in you, and forget with what limitations other people are putting on you or making you believe. Because in reality, it's just patience, dedication, and the will to want to do it for sure.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That is so good. Protecting your inner child and the dreams that you had. So what is the most inspiring feedback that you have received from other people that have helped you along the way?
I would say a couple of things. So I've met clients that have started off working from garages, basements, apartment buildings, whatever, and they've been loyal clients. So I've I've helped them along the way, and I've seen how much they've succeeded, and I'm just like, wow, like this is what people don't get to see, and I'm experiencing that from just working alongside them, you know? So I'm seeing them grow and become this grand thing. And now that like surpass certain people. And then that's super inspiring. So that is something I always like take into account. Like I see how they got there and I've been a part of it in some way indirectly. And I'm just like, and then from that, I definitely always take what they're doing right. So I'm like, this is what they're doing. This is why they're succeeding. And I learn from that because I'm like, that's good. That's something to look up to. In terms of personally people, simple stuff like I feel like with every emotion, you go into this cycle, like you're in a good mood and out of nowhere you're just sad. But it's temporary, you know, this feeling is temporary, and then you get over it and then you're happy again and everything's good, or you're upset and whatever, like everything else. So I feel like sometimes that little doubt sneaks in and you're just like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. Maybe this is too much. Maybe I should just, just leave it alone and just, keep it simple, whatever. But I've had my sister, my bestie, and I'm just like, they're like, who cares? Do it. Like simple stuff like that. Just who cares? Like, just go do it. That's what you want to do. What's the worst that could happen? Just do it. And sometimes it's simple phrases like that. And you're like, you're right. Who cares? Like, let me just do it. Right. So they give me that reassurance of things that I already know. But again, that doubt sneaks in and they just like, out, you're like, don't let it fester, get rid of it and move on. And simple things, something that my mom said, and like, I won't forget something. I forgot how she said it in Spanish, but I didn't forget. So what she was saying is like, eventually the sun shines on everyone. So it's like, whether it's your turn, somebody else's turn, just do what you want to do. Eventually the sun will shine on you, So simple things like that, simple phrases like that. It's just, that's all I need sometimes. That encouragement of like, go ahead, just do
sometimes it just takes like that one person to give you that, okay. To do it. All right. Yeah. So I know that you are like so full of wisdom and advice and encouragement, and I love it. I feel like that's why. Yes. But okay, this is like to send us out. What is one piece of advice, or like in a nutshell, that you would give to the next generation of women, of Latinas who are either in college or in high school? Like, what is that one piece of advice that you would give them?
I say it doesn't matter what job you have at whatever point in life, you will learn something from it, and always try to be the best at it. Not necessarily competing with anybody else, but the best to your potential, because you will gain something, whether it's work ethic, the experience, learning something new, any type of knowledge. I'll never like block it. The more you learn, the more you know, the better. Like keep that brain working, stay curious, stay learning, stay wondering, and ask questions for sure. And never let your ability or never let your gender, race, or anything keep you from believing you're not worthy of something. That doesn't matter. Just like I said, it's patience, dedication, and will. If you want to do it, do it. That's it. That's all I got to say.
I feel like I can like leave now and I am set for the whole rest of the week. Like you have just filled me up. Like I can do anything. Yes, no, it has been so great talking with you, and I'm so thankful to have you as a friend and in my corner always, in business and in life. So I am just so excited for people to be able to hear your story and to be encouraged by you. It's been so great. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on Instagram or your websites? Give us the details.
Sure. Instagram is where I post most, and then everything just goes into Facebook. So my Instagram is Elope_up, and Exquisitely Striking is EXQ, the word strike, ING.
I will also have those like in the notes for people to be able to click and link. But I am just so thankful for your time and thank you for chatting with me. Even though it was like on
Of course.
like through video, I feel like we usually hang out at like a bar or coffee shop.
Yeah.
One day when this is all over, we'll be able to hang out again.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, thank you. All right. So thankful for your time, and I will talk to you later. I feel like with all these interviews, I'm always telling them how proud I am of them. And it's true. For each person that I've interviewed so far, to see these Latinas, my friends, take hard work, creativity, and passion that is culturally ingrained in us is amazing to witness. And I'm so proud to know Mariana. You can find all her information on the website elevatinglacultura.com. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share, take a screenshot to post on Instagram, or send me a DM. You can also comment on our YouTube video. I always like to hear from people and how they are resonating with the stories that I share. So enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, y nos vemos next week.